I texted you last night that I was like, like they got me once because like first of all, I think the Steelers are trying to kill me because,
That was,
well, I mean, not the game so much, but just like I'm old and like they need to quit doing Sunday nights. And then next week
yeah.
is Monday night.
Oh, they have Monday night next week?
Yes.
So they had the rain delay. Wait, were they part of the rain delay game?
Yes, that was the rain delay that I actually did watch the Penguin that night
Yes.
because the rain delay wasn't over until like 8:45. So I thought, you know what, I can actually get this in tonight. And that was the one where the game went until after midnight.
Yeah.
And then, so this one, I was like, listen,
It's like watching the old Pac-12 games. Or,
I,
or when LeBron went to the Lakers, so all those games were on the West Coast, like it was 9 p.m. And I'm like, oh, I can catch the second half of the game. It's like, nope, game just started.
yeah, it's like when the Cardinals play like San Diego and the
Yeah.
game starts at like 8:45 or 9:15. I'm like, but what are we doing?
Right.
Like, I get that it's unnaturally early on that, like, just stop. I just
Yeah, I
cannot.
don't like it. I don't like it.
I just, I can't. So, I actually did get a chance to watch the Penguin. I first of all
Yes.
watched the Steelers game last night. I know you also texted me, is there a quarterback controversy? I don't think there
Yes.
is.
You don't think so?
No, I think they'll keep, I'll think that, I mean,
Did we ever get an explanation why they benched Justin Fields in the first place?
I don't,
Is it because of the draft pick?
I think that has something to do with it. And I think it was because now, I mean, like, I still have my suspicions on whether or not how hurt Russell was, but I think, like, he kind of put himself in a box by claiming or being hurt. And so then, like, you have to go through, like, like, okay, are you ready? And
Right.
so, I mean, like, if he was hurt, then I mean, I'm glad that they took the time, or that he took the time to, recover. So he was,
Yeah.
um, but I honestly think that Justin wasn't supposed to be the number one quarterback. That Russell clearly had been picked up to be the number one, that Justin was going to be the backup. Well, it just so
Hmm.
happened that Russell didn't start the season. Justin puts in there. And I have to say they've both handled it extremely well. Like everybody's been
Yeah. Yeah,
super
they have.
mature about it. I know like Justin said, "Hey, and he even said like I wasn't playing if I was playing better, maybe this wouldn't happen, but I haven't been playing good." Which, kudos to him for saying that. He didn't have to.
Yeah.
He could have been like, you know, and then last night after the game, Russell actually thanked Justin Fields for getting them to 4-2.
Oh, his post-game interviews. The NFL memes page said he answered like Chat GPT wrote his answers, and I used to be a big Russell Wilson fan, but then the more I see about him, everything just seems
Yes.
fake. He has no personality. He just seems very robotic. The facade that he puts on, I don't, he's inauthentic, and that just annoys me whenever I see him.
I he, um I will
Broncos
say that
country, let's ride.
hmm,
I said Broncos country, let's ride.
which they tried to get him to say that last night.
Yes,
Did you see it?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
Uh,
he didn't. And I have to say he in my opinion, he came across a little bit probably more humble than he maybe I don't know. Like he
that
like
Denver experience might have humbled him a bit, and then coming to a team and the fact that there was a quarterback controversy to start the season or to during the preseason,
right.
that probably was a second humbling. And while he doesn't say he got benched because obviously he was injured and we'll never know how much he was injured,
Right.
the reality was you weren't playing and the Steelers were winning, which was kind of like a third humbling. Now,
by
all that
somebody younger
yesterday.
than you. You know,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
not so much your heir apparent, but I mean like somebody that's younger than you,
Yeah.
kind of showing you like you might have been a game away from not playing in the league anymore.
Yeah.
Like it had, I think, I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, you can't, hindsight's 2020, or like you can't even really like this is all hypothetical, but like those couple games that they lost really came down to just a play or two, and had had the record been 5-1 or 6-0.
They would have possibly left Justin Fields in, which, yeah, you don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right, which I think he kind of looks at that and thinks, maybe not like thank God he only went 4-2, that he went
Right.
4-2, but
But he realizes it was close.
it was close, and that again, then at that point, then he transitions from starting quarterback to backup, no
Hmm.
matter what team.
Right.
Possibly. I mean, like he could go to. I mean,
You can go to the Browns.
I was gonna say
I
go to
heard,
the Browns. I
I
mean,
heard they're
like
looking
I
for a
know Tua hasn't
QB.
come back yet fully, but
Yeah.
like whoo. I mean, I know this is supposed to be. I know this. We apologize. I know this episode's supposed to be about the big penguin, but football is just too crazy right now,
It
especially
really
just.
is.
I like Brandon. I mean, what's happening at the 49ers? First of all, they had one job yesterday.
How do you how do you have Patrick Mahomes throw two interceptions in the third quarter, halfway through the third, the Chiefs have 14 points and you lose the game? Also, yes, that championship window, or that Brock Purdy is the second coming. Well, I mean, he's had a lot of injuries, or the team has had a lot of injuries, but Brock Purdy went from America's Cinderella story to some guy.
He's bounced between Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Relevant to Mr. No, like that's
Yes. And
like
again, I realize the 49ers have had just a ton of injuries,
right.
but still, he hasn't looked great.
Just turn off my light.
Brendan Ayuk got all that money and now he's out for season.
Right.
I
Yeah.
saw it go. I was like, did
Yeah, I know
the
my
light?
light just went out, didn't it? It's like,
Thought it was one of those motion
oh,
lights.
that's so bright. I
But
touched
yeah,
something.
how are the Chiefs still undefeated? Which I don't want to talk about that because it'll get me on a whole rant. But like, and it's like they're the most vulnerable. It's like the worst looking 6-0 team I've seen,
Let me
but
tell you
they're still
something.
winning,
In what
which makes
universe
me, yeah.
does Geno, okay, I have Geno Smith and I have Geno Smith for one league and Patrick friggin' Mahomes in the other. How does Geno Smith get three times the points that Patrick
Geno Smith
Mahomes
is the
gets?
league passing leader right now.
I know. Who are
Him,
you
Baker
telling? I have,
Mayfield, Sam Darnold. Like at this point, I think the Browns need to stick with Jameis Winston because clearly
well, he's
the
out for the season,
quarterbacks are all coming back around.
right?
All the ones that we wrote off are now good.
Yeah, and the Deshaun Watson thing, that's did you see LeBron like
I did. I
tweeted
was
about it?
honestly kind of like I was surprised that LeBron made a statement. Jameis Winston, what he said after the game, that's his teammate. I just think I'm not saying we should cheer when he goes down because that is a terrible injury, but seeing LeBron and some other people, I'm like, you would have been better off saying nothing because it's one of those, if you say you like pineapples or apples, that means you hate oranges type of
Right.
situations. Like, I'm not saying that you saying that people shouldn't be booing him means that you're supporting his actions, but you would have been better off just being just go into your closet that's probably the size of my house and just go to the wall and be like, man, I think that's really messed up that people are booing this guy that got hurt. And they never should have left that room. I I've said kind of nothing because I like it sucks what happened to him, but I'm also looking at him and I'm like, you
One of my
shouldn't.
favorite tweets was if he'd been in prison, his Achilles he would still be intact.
I mean, and that's kind of the same thought I had about who's the guy on the Chiefs that had like two or three. He had the hit and run, then he
Rashid
like
Rice.
punched a kid in the club. Yeah, Rasheed Rice. And then he like got in a fight in a club, and all of these things are still being investigated. But like he's guilty of all of them. Like we saw the footage, but he was
Right.
playing, and then he got hurt, and I was like, well, if he was suspended, he would have been healthy.
Yeah, it's kind of like kind of the Deshaun Watson thing.
Yeah,
Everybody's like, well, you really didn't have anything to say when like,
right, and that's
like
the thing. Like, if he had made a statement regarding all of those things, I'd be like, okay, so you can say all these things are terrible, and then you can also say this is terrible. But when there are two incidents and one of them really outweighs the other, but you make a statement on this one, I saw that, I was like, oof, that's not a good look.
and Jameis has had his own legal troubles. So I mean, like
That's also true. Yeah. So these two guys with their statements, I was just like,
like
okay,
you
guys.
probably like, but he's, I mean, but like, in the good old Southern way of saying, bless Jameis Winston's heart. But um, I, I just I don't know how many books the boys cracked open. Like
It just
he's 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 not all there. And I
no.
mean, he's good. He's good at one thing.
Yeah.
He's like our beloved Jim Edmonds. He's good at one thing. He probably just needs to stick to that.
It just yeah, I saw statements coming out in every single one. My very first thought was you should have said nothing. But my
Hmm.
second thought was, did you say anything about the other situation? And I know some people were
Right.
arguing that being athletes, they're looking at it from an athlete perspective, which
Right.
and
I get.
another athlete saying that, I see where
Right.
you're coming from, but there's just something to be said about this guy who is continuing to have these allegations, like still coming out, which in my mind, I fully believe, and I think I tweeted this, but I think there were more stories, allegations, witnesses, and the Browns knew about them, and they looked at each other in their boardroom and said, "We can let this out now, and potentially have this quarterback who could be pretty good get into some legal trouble and ruin it for us again, or we can just like keep these stories to ourselves, and if he plays badly, then we allow those stories to come out,
Right.
and then we can use that as like, oh, this is why." Because I remember when he was first trying to leave Houston, he was leveraging a fully guaranteed contract and
Oh
all
yeah.
of this different stuff. And suddenly, that's
Right.
when the allegations came out. And it turns out the lawyers that was representing those women was the best friend of the owner of the Texans.
Okay.
Like that right there let me know, like
Sure.
the Texans knew about this and they were just like, "Oh, you want to hold out for a fully guaranteed contract? Cool." And then those stories came out. Then he goes to the Browns. We hadn't heard any more allegations for a few years. This season he plays terribly, and after his worst game in week 3, I think it was,
Right.
like
Something like that.
where
Yeah.
he had a terrible game. The next day, or maybe even that night, another story came out. I'm like, okay, this is twice now where you've demanded something from a team and allegations come out, and the
Right.
person leading the charge is the best friend of the owner. And then now you've had like the worst game of the season, and the next day a new story comes out. So as far as I'm concerned, the teams know about it, and
Oh,
they're using witnesses
sure.
as leverage.
Which is awful.
Yes.
I yeah, I
Like, and I'm
the
not saying what that makes it okay what he's doing. Obviously it's wrong, but it's just like for the teams to now point the finger.
oh,
And it's
because
like,
it's all
but
about
if you
money.
actually cared, you've had these people, you just been like, holding the door shut
Oh yeah.
until you can use it against the
It
player.
all comes down to wins and losses. It
Yeah.
all comes down to wins and
If
losses.
James
Like,
is if Deshaun Watson was playing well, that newest allegation from 2 weeks ago wouldn't have seen the light of day.
nope.
If he didn't demand a fully guaranteed contract from the Texans back in whatever year it was and just was like, oh, I'm gonna, sign my second contract for, the league max because quarterbacks do that. But it was a, decent offer, story never would have come out. He said, I want a fully guaranteed contract. They said no. He said, okay, let's play chicken. And they said, oh, okay, you want to play chicken? Well,
Hmm.
and now the Browns are doing the same thing. It's like, well, if you had played well, we wouldn't have brought this out, but you played terribly. Now we release this story. Now, when it comes time to not pay you or get out of the contract, we can be like, hey, this is a non-football thing. So we don't owe you the last, 200 million that we owe.
You still kind of want, I mean, I don't know. Like you think they're like, I don't know. You think that because isn't it like 180 million or something like that that he's owed?
Yeah. You just
I
cut him
mean,
and
like
take the penalty.
like, do they still owe him that if he's I don't know.
That's
I
what I'm
don't
saying. Like, was there a clause? Because I feel like if you just cut a player because they tear their knee up or something and the money is fully guaranteed, like that's what the money is for.
right.
I feel like from a morality standpoint,
Is there you think he has morality clause?
no, you're right. You're right. No, that was a poor choice of words. I feel like there should be a clause not protecting the teams because I really don't care about these billion-dollar franchises. But
Right.
like if a player murders somebody or something
Sure.
egregious
Sure.
and it's like we cannot keep you on the team, there
Right.
should be a clause that's like you don't have to pay you your money. And then I'm like, but I feel like teams might set players up. And then I'm like, nope, because now I feel like I'm trying to make the players innocent and it's like you're responsible for your own actions. Like
Right.
I feel like that's a slippery slope in the sense of like if you have a player that's not good, you can go hire
Like
a
entrapment kind
person
of stuff.
exactly to be like, we didn't want to pay you anymore because you're no longer valuable to us. So we
Right.
decided to pay
Send
this
some hookers to
person.
your room.
Exactly. And like that's what I'm afraid of. And but then again, I'm like, but again, you're responsible for your own actions. But it's just
Right.
like if you give the teams an out to not pay you, they will 100% abuse it. But
Oh,
I also feel like if you do something bad, you shouldn't get that guaranteed money.
right.
So it's like
Right.
it just gets you
Right.
in a tough situation.
And the only people like we're really concerned about right now is the physical therapist that he's going to be visiting.
Exactly. Because now he's got to go to physical therapy. Like, what do? You just send like a team of men. Like, this is your physical therapy team. That's it. We didn't even interview any women for the job. We
You,
like there
you
was
hear
no
me? Like
chance.
I don't think that should even be as an option for him. Like
Not a
that's
single person. You pull into the parking lot, it's a male receptionist, a male custodian. Like there was not a woman in the building.
not even on a pamphlet.
Right.
It's been something though. I mean, like I have to say, like even tonight though, I was kind of feeling like God. I mean, there's just I feel, and I by no means I don't I don't mean this. I really don't mean this. Like it's just like with two. Like I think there's like one more week coming up where there's two games on a Monday night, and
Ugh.
I got to, and I had the thought tonight, and I was just like, man, it's almost too much football.
Yes.
Now, I I I get how that sounds. Being a huge football fan, I understand how that sounds. But two Monday night games, a Thursday night game. I mean, like we're not close, but I think it's it might not be until December where then Saturday game. But I mean, like I was just like there's too much. I love
Mark,
the
you, yeah,
I love college football for the reason is most of the games are played on Saturday, only on
yeah.
Saturday, and I mean, yeah, I'm sure. Like, I think there was a couple games that were Friday night, And I guess it's much like this where, like, okay, you don't have to watch Monday Night Football. You don't have to watch Thursday Night Football if it's not really your team's. I feel compelled to do it
But you're
anyways.
compelled to because it's you got fantasy players, but also these games impact other games that do impact you.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, and it's a random interview quote that has stuck with me for years. Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, when the NFL first announced the Thursday night games, or they already had Thursday night and they were making a pitch for like Friday or Saturday, or they were adding Thursday night. Mark Cuban came out and said it was a bad idea and said something about hungry pigs get fat. Or he basically alluded to
Oh,
too much of something that shouldn't be had too much will ruin whatever the game, whatever it is. And my young self was like, "Oh, Mark Cuban is an NBA owner. Like
as
he's
if you're
just
still not young.
that's true. Mark Cuban is just an NBA owner. He's jealous that the NFL is going to have games on nights when NBA games are. But now, like years later, I'm like, no, he was right. Like Thursday night games, it only gives me like 2.5 days to recover from the poor choices I made in my fantasy lineup before I got to do it again. The Thursday games, like I like a game to like in the middle of the week, but then you have two games on Monday night. Like, yes, it sounds selfish and really it's only 3 days, but it's like, no, I don't want that.
Right.
I
It's
don't
a
want
lot.
that.
I hate Thursday night games.
Yeah,
I
because you're
hate
not
it
in the
for the players.
mindset. The players hate it.
Right. The only
There have
people that
only
like
been a
it probably
couple
is
times
Jerry
where I've been
Jones.
okay with it. The only time I've really been okay with it is if it's the middle of the week. I don't have anything else going on. And maybe once or twice, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a football game. I can do that. But a lot of times, even when I know there's the game, I might have it on, but I'm not watching it really because it's
Mm-mm.
like, no, this isn't the football day. Like,
Right. Yeah,
and
there's something wonderfully pure about it being on Sunday where you're like, it's
yes,
on at noon and it's for the rest of the night.
yes.
You get that little break between the 3:30 games and the Sunday night football game where
Hmm.
you can stand up, stretch,
Go
look at
outside,
people.
just get a breath of fresh air.
Yes, go outside, take a big deep breath,
Yes.
like do
Go
some
touch
bins,
grass really quick. Yeah.
fill up fill up whatever you're drinking, wolf down some
Yes.
food real fast, and then be sitting right back down for Sunday night football.
Yes.
But
100%.
yeah, yeah, it's so okay. So actually, let's get to the
Yes.
pig.
So the penguin.
So the penguin. So I have to say, I'm gonna give a real short. This is my thought. Really still enjoying it. Still thought it was a great episode. Probably still not as good. I still think four has been the episode so far. This one's really good because it gave you a little insight to maybe how everybody was kind of rooting for Oswald, and then he's kind of like, wow, he just watches people cook. Um,
Yeah.
and the other thing I have to say is I'm still confused as to why Batman is not mentioned. I mean, like, I know he's not going to be. I get it. I get he's not going to be in the show. He's not going to be mentioned, but a whole crime family just died. You would think Batman, the detective that they had set up in that first movie, that this penguin is part of, him being the detective, would be like an entire crime family just died.
Gotham is a big city, so I was before this episode, I was thinking like, because everyone's like, "Where's Batman? All this stuff is going on. He's not there." I'm like, Gotham is a big city, and these crime families rise to power, and these different plans and stuff happen because they're doing stuff in the shadows, not the shadows that Batman is in, but the other shadows. So I can understand why he wouldn't be around for some of this, plus also plot armor, like it's the show.
Sure.
But with the whole a whole crime family. Like
Whole crime family.
the people that run Gotham are the Court of Owls and the crime families. A whole crime family was just wiped out.
Yes.
I could excuse the other stuff. He was in a different part of Gotham because even on New Rockstars, they were like reading the bottom ticker where the weather things and talking about all these different cities. Like you
Right.
could be like, okay, maybe he's dealing with stuff over there, over there.
Yeah, he can't be
But
in every alleyway.
exactly, I was able to excuse that. But an entire crime family gets wiped out. Come on, man.
Whole family. A
Yeah.
whole, and it makes the news, and it's a whole family.
Yes.
And it is dealing with a cop that you have had run-ins with.
Yes.
Like a whole family. And there was only, and they made it very clear there was only one survivor. Don't you think you'd be like, let's talk to this survivor? Like,
Yeah. And again, I realize it's the Penguin show, but they've got to at least reference like, oh yeah, Bruce Wayne is here, or someone from Wayne Enterprises is here to talk about his family's like something, because that
something.
is too big of a situation to not like that is rattling all of Gotham. Because again, the Court of Owls and the crime families pretty much like own and run the city. Like
Right.
those groups.
Right.
For the Falcons to just be wiped out.
Out.
And now Salvatore Maroni, sneaking out of prison,
Yeah, you would think
you
a
would,
prison break would like
yeah,
register with
yeah,
him as
yeah.
well.
Maybe Batman, you were in some alley beating up a drug dealer that was trying to provide for his family, but you would think a whole crime family getting wiped out and Salvatore Maroni getting out of prison. You'd be like, you know what? I'll beat you up later. There was
Right.
something clearly more important going on over here that I need to
Yeah,
check out.
something. Yeah, something is it's like so an entire family crime family was wiped out, and another crime boss just escaped prison.
Yeah,
Perhaps I want to see if these things are
yeah,
related.
maybe, maybe. I might swing by.
Like, I mean, it's like I said, those like I said, still really enjoying it. I mean, and if that's like really my only like I guess plot hole or whatever at the moment, it's fine. I mean, I get why they're doing it. It's not supposed to be
Yeah.
about Batman. You're not, but I mean, it, it it's I guess it's even if you would just you them so not wanting him to be involved in the show is almost like it's almost making it more obvious.
You have to explain it in the second movie now. The movie that will be about him, there
Yes.
needs to be a reference to like, hey, so
Where were you?
where were you in all of this? Like, yeah, we didn't expect you to be like in the middle of all of it, sure. But I mean,
I mean, they.
something.
You mean you hate. I'm not like trying. I'm not doing like comparisons of Marvel and DC, but I think even in the Eternals movie, which wasn't all that great, didn't a character ask where the hell were you when Thanos
Yes.
showed up? I mean, like
Yes.
you do have to like acknowledge. Like some shows are still doing a good job of acknowledging the snap. Like, I mean, like
Maybe he was there. He was in the club because he has been shown to go into clubs. Maybe he was getting the little bliss eye drops in his eyes, and he's just been on a whole other planet this whole time.
I mean, the Penguin has been in several alleyways now
Yes.
with dead bodies, burnt up cars, setting people on. Well, he was in some, he was in the place setting people on fire. Which, what did you think about that scene?
When he set the Maroney wife and son on fire,
Yeah, Nadia and Taj. Yeah.
I thought a clever setup. I wondered why he was wet. I was just like,
Yes.
why is this guy wet? Like, were they waterboarding him before he got there? Were they just torturing him just because they could? And I think that's what they wanted you to think, and that's what I thought.
Right.
Genius to do that. But when I think that scene was there to make us start to not necessarily turn on Oswald, but to like remind people because you see him with his mom,
Right.
you see him with Vic talking about his stutter, and he's shown flaws throughout the show, but he is, I won't say lovable, but he's been someone that like you're kind of like, yeah, obviously after the Sophia episode, like again, she can do no wrong. She deserves her get back. But for him, you also were like, he's trying to make something of himself. And yeah, obviously he's a bad guy, but his intentions are somewhat good. Then he did that. Then and I'm like, okay, so you're a bad guy.
And
And
grinned.
do it.
And grinned while he did it.
And grinned while he did it. And then, I mean, you also started to turn on him or start to realize he wasn't, a great guy when he had a whole rousing speech telling Sophia how, like, I might have betrayed you. And I'll be honest, I don't regret it because I got all of this. But look, it's us against the world now. It's me and you. And legitimately 5 minutes later, he turned on her. So you knew, like, he's not to be trusted, which is kind of the whole thing
Sure.
of both families. I think, I think they are setting him up. I think he's going to kill Vic. I don't think Vic has a future. I think he's either going to not he's not going to kill him. I think they are setting him up to turn on Vic and in the worst way possible. Like other people, he's turned on them and they've, now they hate Oswald. It's like, oh, Oswald. And now like they hate him. I think he is going to turn on Vic. He's either going to abandon him in a shootout or something. And that is really going to solidify the Penguin. Like I just the more I watch it, they are bringing them closer together. Vic has now leaned into proving himself.
Oh yeah.
Some people are like, oh, is he going to be? What character could he be? Is he going to be a new character? I think they are building him up and building them up together. So at the peak, Oswald will push him off the cliff. Like I think that
Ooh.
he is going to betray him and not like send him to Arkham. Like I think he's going to betray him and Vic will die. In his last moments, he's going to realize that the Penguin just used him because that's literally all he does. And he's such a great gaslighter because he's convincing himself. And New Rockstar's already talked about it, how he brings all these people in, convinces himself that they want to be there, and then when they want to leave, then he lashes out like, "How dare you!"
Right.
Like I think they're setting him up to betray Vic. I don't know when. I don't know in what situation. Is he going to tell Batman that Vic was the mastermind behind the whole thing? Like there is going to be something, and he is going to turn on Vic, and not turn on him.
Save
He's just going to
himself, you think? It like in a save himself kind of thing?
yes, in
Okay.
a situation where he could save both, but it might put him in a little bit of more danger. He will save himself, or kind of like in the whole Sophia situation where they pulled the gun on him and he immediately was like, no, 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 the drugs are yours. I don't even know her. Well, go ahead, shoot her right now. I don't care. The drugs are yours. This was all for you. Like, didn't you
Right.
like? I think it's going to be a situation like that, something where Indiana Jones style, the temple's falling apart, and he goes to save her, and she's like, and he's like, no, and lets him fall. Like, I just I think they are bringing them closer and closer and closer together,
Mm-hmm.
and really have you think like, oh, Oz sees himself. Like Oz trusted him to watch his
Right.
mom, and he's keeping him around and all this different stuff. He trusts him. Like I think they are building up that trust
You
so
think
that
he's gonna be like a you think he's gonna use him as like maybe metaphorically as a human shield?
metaphorically
Or
or otherwise.
yeah, or literally.
Yeah.
Or do you think that Vic will sacrifice himself?
I don't think it's going to be a sacrifice because I don't think that because that would absolve the Penguin of the guilt, and the Penguin is a villain, which I think they
Right.
after they allowed us to see him as a villain with some dignity, I think
Right.
this episode was like, oh no no, well the episode where he was ready to portray Sophia like immediately, but then what he did with the Maronis, like had the head Maroni tried to have him stabbed.
Which yeah, I love how they were like they did mention the guard. He was like, "This
The
is for Miles."
guard.
Like, what are
Yeah,
you
like come
doing?
on, man. Yeah, well, come on, man. Like
You
I
could have just
just think that they and then with the whole burning, like I think they are setting him. They have now. They're dropping those little things in there to remind you, like, no, 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 this is not a good guy.
Mhm.
He might have somewhat of a moral compass, but at the end of the day, he will backstab and step on your throat and punt babies to get what he wants. And he will bring you in for a hug and stab you in the back and then make you feel like it was your fault. Like that's
So
where
you
I
you
see it.
you don't see him being like his like driver slash consigliere,
Nope.
and
He did that for Sophia and then he
but
betrayed
Victor, I'm talking
her.
about Vic doing this for Penguin.
Mm-mm. No, I think that's what they want us to think because he did it for Sophia, and now Sophia's in charge, and then he was a driver, so that he finds a driver. Like, I think they want us to believe the cycle is going to continue, but I think in the final moments or at some point, there is going to be a time, and it's not going to be a human sacrifice by Vic. I think Vic already did that when he drove the car into the Maronis, where like literally in that scene,
Right.
he could have pulled up, like, you know what, I changed my mind, seen what was going on, and be like, you know what, never mind, go back
But
to
you
the
don't
bus
think that leaves
station.
him pretty alone for the movie?
I think I don't know how. I think maybe the one guy, that was hiding from. Like,
Squid?
obviously, a villain needs to have a crew, and as of right now, he has
So you
Vic
think
and
Squid and Penguin because they're sea
possibly.
creatures?
I think he goes to Crown Point, finds the people that are the most desperate, and basically talks about how the city's forgotten about you. They forgot about me too. And he like
Right.
brings them in, promises them all of this different stuff. And that's how he gets his crew for the next movie. But I don't think Vic is there. I think at some point he Vic's usefulness runs out or something. Not even his usefulness runs out. I think he just they get to a situation where he's like, oh, someone has to die, and it's not gonna be me.
Right.
I think he's just going to betray him. I think this episode really reminded me that Penguin is not a good guy, and he will
Oh,
do whatever
sure.
it takes to win. It kind of goes back to the whole Game of Thrones situation where you and I have a slightly different opinion on how they handled the last season,
Right.
or not the last season, but Daenerys'
Daenerys.
descent into madness, where you say they dropped hints here, here, and here. I say, well, everyone that she killed up to that point kind of deserved it, and then you said, well, did like to her,
Murder's
sure,
murder.
yeah, exactly. Like, and I think to me it was kind of a turn, like what she did at not the Red Keep, or was it the Red Keep? No, whatever what she did at King's Landing, I didn't see coming. I mean, I
Sure.
kind of did, but to me,
Yeah, she
they
told
didn't set
everybody
it up.
that's what she was going to do.
Yeah, to me, they didn't set it up enough with her descent
Right.
into madness. I think with the Penguin, they are reminding us that he cannot be trusted. He will backstab literally anyone except for his mom. I think his mom's like the one person he won't turn
Hmm.
on, even though he did leave her, unless he had one of his other goons pull up, took her to the hoodest of hoods and was like, all right, Vic, come on, we're gonna go to the trolley station. Mom, you just stay here with your dementia, and we'll be back.
I
We'll be
I do love his line though about like you got to keep her protected. She's what keeps me good. And I was like,
yeah.
keeps you
If by
good.
good you mean checking up on her, giving her a kiss, and all of that, like sure, but
She's
most
yeah.
people would do that for their moms. That does not make you good.
She keeps me good. I was like, keeps you good. And in the fact that like your single, it seems like your single motivation is setting her up for a better life. Or because I was like, you say that, and then you literally went off to burn some people.
Yeah. And kind of like New Rockstar has pointed out, that was the plan the whole time. The fire was not a failsafe. That
Right.
was going to happen
That was going to happen.
regardless.
Right. Yes. That
And you
he
just
was
lost your product because of it, because you wanted to sit there and watch them burn. You could have set them on fire. You could have
always, yeah,
gotten out of there.
I do enjoy his character because it's it's like, again, like we had said before, he thinks out a plan, but he only thinks out like a couple steps of it and then doesn't like look down like, okay, well,
Doesn't look up the cause and effect of,
right, like, okay, what are the possible consequences of this action?
yeah,
Like, it's going to feel really good in the like when he shoots Albert Alberto in
yeah,
the
in the
very first
beginning.
episode, in the very first scene, like it felt good in that moment, and as maybe as deserved as it was, and you had every right to, and he laughed at you and stuff like that. It's always shoot, and then how that first episode starts, it's he shoots it and he's like, oh, and that, and almost all of his actions have been like that,
Yeah,
like you said, with the fire, and then he has the mushrooms in the back of his truck, like he's not thinking about, and then he gets mad because they all the temperature had changed him, and he messed them all up, and it's like, when he's on the phone with Maroney and he says to him, like, and he's like, oh, and I cooked your what, basically I cooked your family, and it's like,
yeah,
if you would have waited, I don't felt really good in that moment to say that to him, but now it's like you saying that, and now it's like, oh crap, now I gotta go get my mom and hide her. Like, I
yeah,
didn't think about what ticking off a mob boss might possibly mean for me.
yeah. And I
The
think
same,
his,
with Sophia. It's
yeah,
I'm let's if he would have just said, when Vic said, like, what do we do with Sophia? And he would have been like, let's get her in the car. He could have started spinning a different story then, but to be like, effort, let's
yeah.
leave. You're not coming back. Like, now she's
She is now teaming up with your enemy to kill you. There is no coming back from that.
right,
There isn't. Like, yeah, and his girlfriend, who he used her and her girls well, he used her as an alibi, and then he had them over at his little house party, and Sophia saw them, and it was like, no, I want to show her, like, I am somebody. People around here know me, and blah blah blah. And it's just like, you're now you've put them in danger because you didn't think ahead. You wanted to flaunt this, and now they're
he's in
in
danger.
danger.
Right,
Like, you're not thinking of the consequences of your actions. Your plan is a plan, but you're not thinking about the consequences of those actions. And you also are too stuck on whoever that old mobster was that he is enamored
right.
with. Like, he is so enamored and emotional about that that it clouds his judgment, which goes back to the whole purple Maserati thing. The reason why Sophia didn't trust you originally, well, she just didn't trust you because you betrayed her. But, you told her I wasn't there, wasn't here, whatever. And then the guys that were trying to jack his rims were like, oh, yeah, the purple Maserati. Like, you didn't think about the consequences of having a bright, flashy car
Right.
because you were so focused on, I want
Being
people to
that
know
one
that
guy.
I am somebody. Where all the other Falcons are driving around in black SUVs. They're under the radar. They're able to blend in. It's like, nope, here's a purple Maserati.
Right. Right. And only because, like, he wanted his own Roman chariot, to
Exactly. Yeah, I think we've both said I love what they're doing with his character. And I saw someone on TikTok complaining, like, rather than find a good way to modernize Oswald Cobblepot, they decided to just take the lazy route and make it The Sopranos in the Gotham universe. And I was like, first of all, shut up. Second
right.
of all, shut up again. Like,
Right.
this, like, the take that they're taking is, I won't say unique, but it's very grounded and so well done. The layers of all of these different characters who have been so perfectly cast. I mean, even something as subtle as Vic's stuttering. Like that is a layer that you wouldn't think to add to a character. And it's not like in your face, but it's there. And you see it in every now and then it is a part of the conversation. It just adds layers and motivations to different things with
Yeah.
these characters. Like
And I
just
like the whole like okay, well like okay, oh it's just The Sopranos. Okay, one, when has there ever been enough gangster related content
right,
ever?
right.
Like okay, it would be like okay, well why do they keep doing mob movies?
There's just too many Al Capone movies.
Yeah,
Just
they've
oh,
already made The Godfather. Why do they keep like
right.
what's the point of this? So I was like that's and I believe the showrunner, the creator is a female and the
Yes,
director.
Helen something.
And we don't all of a sudden you all of those women can't create shows kind of thing has
We always find a way to get. They're never happy. They are never happy. Like I
they
would,
seem pretty silent right now
right? They have
because
nothing to
you know what
say.
it comes down to? Good friggin' content.
Yes. Again, like I said last week, though, I do hate that. No, I don't hate that they're silent now because it's like you should be silent
Sure.
because both this and Agatha have been phenomenal.
So good.
But it now gives them the confidence or the leverage to be like, yeah. So when I was hating on the Acolyte and She-Hulk and all this other stuff, the Marvels, it just was bad writing. It's like, well, I don't disagree. It wasn't great writing. You guys were hating on it from like the jump.
Right.
When the Acolyte was announced,
You blamed the bad writing, the bad directing on women. Is what you get is
yes,
what it came down to is
exactly.
you said that the reason it sucked was because women had done it. It just wasn't that it was like it's just bad writing, bad directing. It was the reason it is because women are doing it, which this should
Yeah,
show you it's like okay, it's not.
exactly.
So actually you brought it up and we hadn't talked about it. What do you think about the Agatha episode?
I thought it was another strong episode. I liked getting the backstory on Billy Kaplan,
Slash
aka
Maximoff.
Billy Maximoff. Very perfect naming there. I thought I thought it was a really good episode. The flashback episodes are always important to the story, but they do it on purpose. But they always drop the flashback episodes right after like a bombshell in the
Sure.
reality. Like they did it after the whole shootout in the Penguin. You're
Right.
like, oh no, what's going to happen next week in this Sophia Falcone episode? Which again, greatest episode in TV history, but
Right.
it's like, no, I wanted to know what the fallout was. So in this one, you see Billy Maximoff gets his powers, he throws them in the mud, and while we did get a good 5 minutes of them in real time, then 95% of the episode was a flashback episode. So like when I saw the flashback, I was like, "Ah," but I knew it was coming. But I great episode. The way they handled him dying and just hearing the heart stop and then start back up
Sure.
and then seeing Lillian and the girl with the curse again. I thought it was great. I thought was it John Locke? Joe Locke
Hmm.
did a phenomenal job.
Oh, so good.
I always thought that he was good as a supporting character and having Catherine Hahn running the show, this episode like kind of put him out there and was like, all right, like you're carrying this episode.
Right.
I thought acting, facial expressions, I thought he did a really good job. And I'm glad they've explained it. It does go back to our conversation of what the implications are with Mephisto going forward and Doctor Doom and all of that. And looking more and more like Mephisto was just name dropped to make people happy.
Which again, I am the only complaint I have about that episode, and you can probably guess it, is why bring Evan Peters back to continue this boner joke? Like I
Hmm.
I Like it just
He
yeah, I mean
played
the
both characters well in both movies, but like you shouldn't have casted him knowing that the
what
X-Men are about to be brought in, and then literally having him as Quicksilver in one of the episodes was like the biggest slap in the face. And then this episode really just doubled down. Like, no, no, we just casted him to be this kind of comic relief character. It's like there were a million actors you could have
yeah.
picked, a
I just
million of them.
I don't know what he added to like I don't know what he added to that. I just it was like, oh no, like just stop, just like, it
I mean,
just
it
don't
was good to see the person. I thought it was good to see the perspective of someone
in
from
the you're
Westview
right.
because outside of him, the only thing we've gotten was Agatha's neighbor who basically said, like, hey, we kind of let you play a crazy person and you pretended to be a cop for a couple days. We just played along. Also, you're naked. I think outside of that and Mrs. Hart, we haven't gotten anything from Westview. So seeing someone who is mentally messed up from
Sure.
having their whole life turned upside down, I thought was good. But seeing it be Evan Peters was just like,
Right.
because it just reminded me of how
Right.
you played us for
Yes.
weeks. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I want to go back and look at not just new rock stars, just all of the nerd content creators that were like, "Yo, we are getting Quicksilver, we're getting the X-Men. They've brought over Evan Peters." And then when he was cosplaying as Quicksilver for Halloween, like you couldn't tell me nothing. And then it's like, oh no, that was just a throwaway gag.
Right. Just a boner joke. Yeah. That was my
Ugh.
only complaint about it. I have to
Yeah.
say, I really, somebody had asked me, how did I think they did as far as, because if you've read the comics and you know the story behind behind her children, like the Billy Kaplan slash Wiccan, and him having biological parents, but then still being the child of Scarlet Witch. It's so confusing and
Yes.
it's I kept wondering how they were going to translate it to the screen without like you still want a touch, I don't want to say a touch of the weirdness, but you still wanted it as close to the like again, I will say like this, we haven't seen it yet. Craven the Hunter is not out yet. You know where I'm going to go with this. It's not out yet. We haven't seen it, so we don't know. But so far in the trailers, it looks like they've really taken his origin story and how he got his powers and kind of just woo.
One of
And it's kind
my
of like
favorite all-time characters. Like Craven the Hunter is one of my all-time favorite characters.
right. So,
And I'm
you
looking
see
at
that
all
and
the
you're like,
trailers and I'm
okay,
like, what is this?
why can't you just
Look how they
stick to
massacred my boy.
right. So you see that and you think, oh boy, here we
Yeah.
go. Like, let's see how. And I have to say, I think they actually did a really good job in the taking his story, his origin story, and pulling out the parts that they could to make it quote unquote believable,
Yeah,
as far as the
for
show
sure.
goes. Like, I think they did a good job. I mean, like, because you didn't have it was, I mean, as kooky and great as the story is, with her creating the kids, but then what you find out is then they're Master Pandemonium's hand, like they're part of his soul, but they're not really his soul. Actually, you find out that Mephisto, when he was kind of destroyed by Reed Richards, that his soul went all over the place, and
Right.
that he actually used Pandemonium to get these pieces of his soul, and so I mean, like you knew that, and so it's like, and then like it ended up the piece of the soul ended up in Billy. I think they did what they could, and I think they did it pretty decent to
Yeah.
be like, this kid was dying. Now, whether we don't know if this was just like it latches onto the closest thing around, and that like Tommy is chipmunk in the woods. We have no idea. We don't know
I
right
mean,
now, like
Agatha
how it
referenced that he broke the rules by doing it. So, but I do think as a whatever 13-year-old or however old he was, I don't think Billy Maximoff knew that he was breaking the rules because he hadn't been alive long enough to
right.
know the rules. But it's something that obviously can be done. But yeah, how he did it, was he able to do it on his own? Was it on purpose? How come Tommy couldn't do it?
Did he do it? And
Did he?
if he did, and is it to somebody, is he out there being somebody else and doesn't know about which is, like because his thing is not so much witchcraft and the occult is like Wiccans is just speed. Is he
Yeah.
just running around at some high school being the fastest guy on the track team? But I mean, like I do think they did a good job as far as taking the again, when you have source material and you use it, you come up
No,
with
for sure. Because, like you said, in order to connect the dots true to comic form, you would have, they couldn't have done it because the Fantastic Four at this moment, all we have is a few posters. So
sure.
like they couldn't have done it that way. And then Mephisto again,
Right.
imagine making Billy and Tommy part of his soul and his whole plan. And again, when Reed Richards went and destroyed him, or Nathan, or was it Reed? Yeah, Reed destroyed him and parts of his
Right.
soul. Like, imagine trying to fit that into an episode. Like, it
Right.
wouldn't have been, you would have done a disservice doing it that
Oh, for
way.
sure.
And so that, yeah, they took the parts that they could, they
Right.
still made it cosmic, they made it otherworldly, they made it witchy, they made it work with
They
the
did.
pieces of material that they had ready to be used.
Right.
Um,
Because they use, like, again, use the source material that's out there and then
yeah,
massage it.
yeah,
Like, don't just chuck it and be like, this, it's not worth even reading. Yeah, it's worth reading and then find something that works.
yeah. And that's something that the MCU has done a good and bad job of doing. Because I think a lot of the characters have had different things change and they've used some source material and they've twisted it and changed it a bit. So the same thing they did with Thanos, like we talked about previously. Obviously, his whole motivation originally was for Mistress Death.
Right.
And at that point, they weren't very cosmic or celestial or eternal yet. So they chose to not go that route
Right.
and make it a flawed, noble mission.
Right.
So, and it's like you took the part of the source material
Right. You still use
and
some
you
of the
made it
source
work.
material. Right. And
Yeah,
you just massaged it to make it work in the current universe that you are building. So
yeah.
I have I think they've done a good job in in the show as far as doing that because I was a little like, okay, well, how are we going to get, like how are we going to make it that it's still that he, Billy Kaplan has these biological parents, but then yet is like, and I thought they took an interesting direction in it that, I mean, I fully because I texted you. I think that I said I thought that like basically he needed the coven to bring back Scarlet Witch.
Yeah,
Well, it's kind of I'm not upset at all to find out that his actual motivation is his brother.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not upset that it seems like they're really trying to hammer her into that she's dead. She's dead. Maybe she'll come back in some sort of way, but this story is about
Maybe that'll be their motivation once he finds his brother.
exactly right. Yeah, but like
Their
the
motivation
motivation of
together.
this show is
Yeah,
to bring these kids to quote unquote life.
yeah.
Like you you're using it, yes, it's Agatha, but what you have done with this show is you use this show, used her character because her character in the comics was tied to these children. You use this character, this show to basically create Wiccan and Speed.
Yeah.
I'm because ultimately you now have introduced a handful of young Avengers. I'm that's
The roster is growing, and to kind of bring it home, they've done a good job of introducing these characters. Meanwhile, not to go back to that show again, but with She-Hulk in the final like 15 seconds of the final episode of the post-credit scene, Hulk comes back from Sakaar or wherever and is like, "Oh yeah,
here's my kid who
here's my
looks
kid."
yeah.
The end. He has a weird haircut, and we're not going to mention his mom, who I loved and lived with, and tragically died during a raid or an invasion. We're not going to mention any of that. It's just here's my kid. This show is, and I know they had WandaVision, but I don't want to complain because I see what the alternative is from the same company. Like,
Right?
it's
Exactly
not like,
right.
oh
And
yeah, these other
that's
guys.
what
No,
makes it
you
but
did
isn't
this.
that what makes it kind of painful is that you see why you can see what's so good about it and then you're like, I know you've got this in you
Yeah, but
and
you're not.
then
Yeah, I know you've got this in you, but you don't try, and
right,
then you make it difficult to defend you. And same thing with Star Wars. You make it difficult to defend you from the online trolls that are just hating purely because there are too many women, or women are in
right,
charge, or there's too many people of color. Like, you make it hard to defend your work, your show, your
right,
movie when you're half-assing it. But then when you actually put real effort into it, use
right.
the source material and do all of this different stuff, it's like, yeah, I can defend your show, but like you both said, for both Penguin and Agatha, we haven't really had to defend it too much because even the people that find issues with everything
Have been
are
pretty
like,
quiet.
no, no, this is actually
Yeah.
pretty good.
We'll yeah, we're gonna keep quiet. We'll see if Dune, we'll see if we can complain about Dune. If maybe not, then it's like
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
mean
Well, I
like
was looking at that. That's November 17th. That's
yeah, it's
coming
the
up.
week after the Penguin is the season
Yes, November.
finale is the 10th,
Yes.
and it's yeah, they start you right back up. I am not mad. I'm like carry me
They know what
through
they're
the
doing.
winter. I need something. But like went back to what you were saying as far as introducing all these young Avengers, like they have done a good job, like they had Kid Loki. They have they really didn't touch on Eli Bradley, but you did see him.
We
But I mean, like
saw him.
you did see him. So I'm saying it's like, but
You
it
might
wasn't
see him in the
like you said,
new
it
Captain
wasn't like
America.
Hulk's kid kind of thing,
Exactly.
right? Like I mean, like they were actually like then you have Cassie Lang that you've seen in the movies, and you've had Hawkeye, Kate Bishop ish,
You have Miss
um,
Marvel. You have
yeah,
Yelena.
yeah. So it's like
Can we call
they
Bucky and Sam young Avengers, or like the middle-aged Avengers?
they're just I just think they're just I don't want to
Because
say
they
the
were
new.
Avengers. Like
They're still Avengers. I think they're just like what they would do with like the new Avengers, like they or
the West
because like
Coast.
they're still the although this is completely distracting. Are they it just now occurred to me. I'm like, well they have I wonder if they'll have a tie-in from the Thunderbolt or from Captain America New World to the Thunderbolts because I mean like that you got two characters that like basically were riding off in a boat into the sunset and now they're like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
well
You've got
yeah so I mean
Sam
like
with his
that's
arm in a dishwasher, or not, but you have Bucky with his arm in a dishwasher and is now joining essentially a group of mercenaries, which he was a mercenary. And then you've got Sam, who is working for the government.
Yeah. I anyway,
I
like
yeah.
that
No,
literally
you're
just
right. They
occurred
were
to
like
me.
this, and then as soon as the lights faded, like, all right, well, I'll see you. Just go their separate
Like,
ways.
they were like the cutest gay couple, like together
Yeah,
and happy, and
yeah.
now that's I
He's like,
don't
I
know
gotta go
what.
back to DC. It's like I gotta go wherever I'm going
Yeah, I'm
to
gonna need them
be
to
a
explain.
mercenary.
I'm gonna need to explain like how they broke up and why they're not
Yeah,
together anymore.
yeah.
But that is for another day because I think those are in May. I think the Captain America's in like February, and
It's
then
like
the
it's either it's I'm pretty sure it is Valentine's Day, I think, which is
oh,
odd.
okay,
Like why like,
sure.
it's a cool date night movie. Like, hey, you want to go see
Hmm.
Red Hulk on Valentine's Day?
They had Madam Web come out on Valentine's Day. Still never understand that.
Have you
Um,
not?
yeah, they did, and that was because like it was like Wednesday that it came out. And so, speaking of which, like
February 14th.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm gonna post this. This is Monday Night Football, because we discuss it. Tomorrow night, which is Tuesday, but I will be posting it on this day. I will be posting it on Tuesday. I will be seeing Venom.
Here's the thing, and I hate
I
myself. I have not seen any of them.
oh,
I think it was like right around the time that Cedric was born, and I was just really busy, and then time got away from me. And like a month, 2, 3 months ago, I was like, I'm sitting down and I'm going to binge both movies. I'm not leaving my house until both movies are watched. And on the 18 different streaming services that I pay for, it was not on any of them. It used
is
to
it on
be on,
anything right now?
I think the only place it's on right now is Prime if you pay to rent it. And I'm
Oh,
just like, no, because
right,
I pay for all these streaming services.
right.
One of you
Should have
has
it.
the rights to carry it.
Right. Really? I Nobody has it.
It was on HBO for the longest time, and that's on me.
It's on
For
Disney.
is it?
That's what my Google says.
They must have just added it because
Let's see if
I'm
they
pretty sure
have the Venom 2 is should see. Because I mean like
okay,
if you could watch them all, I would take you tomorrow. The other one's
okay.
stars or Venom 2 it says stars, but anyways, that's what I am seeing. Because do you know anything like
I
I
know the
had no
stories. I know everything.
null like
Yes,
no like that's
I'm
I'm
excited for that.
from my understanding this is supposed to kick off a whole new whatever.
Yeah,
um I mean it's Sony, so who
that's the thing.
knows.
It's like you make the Venom movies that are pretty good, and then but then it makes you wonder, like, why can't you do this with Morbius or
Well, you
Madam
see
Web
what is it more.
or
I'm gonna
Craven?
so get that wrong. I think no, I think it cannot be right. Either more oh more, okay, I'm gonna say it could be any of these things, which is great, when you can have people fact check you. um Joker 2 has either brought in
Yes.
the same amount of money as Morbius. Okay, that's it.
No, I think it has a better
Less.
Rotten, Morbius has a better Rotten Tomato score than Joker 2.
Okay.
But I think you were also right that they've brought in the same amount of money because Joker 2 is now headed to
Or
digital,
less
like
money. It has either
less
brought
money.
in the same amount or less money than Morbius, because I remember people making the joke like, whoop, it's time for Morbius too.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyways, yes, I'm gonna see Venom tomorrow and see what that's all about. I have read Absolute Carnage. I highly recommend that comic
Ooh,
series. I think it's 5 or 6 comics.
okay.
Um, quick, it's about Absolute Carnage is about basically Null is kind of or Carnage is kind of wanting to reawaken Null, to bring Null back to Earth. And the way it needs to be done is Carnage is responsible for tracking down um everybody that has ever had the symbiote inside them. Like I think they refer to them as like codices, and them,
Hmm.
which then you start to realize how many different people the symbiote throughout the comics that he has been in. I mean, he has been in everybody, like everybody. Captain America, and you see spoiler alert, you see Miles Morales become a Venom-ish Spider-Man in it. It's a great comic. Only like 4 or 5. It's only I think it's 5 or 6
Yeah, I'm
maybe.
just looking it up. That's 2019 is when it came out.
The movie you're talking about the comic.
The comic.
Yeah, probably ish.
Yeah,
I don't have my it's in front, but I have actually been reading a whole bunch of them for Halloween, just kind of like getting into different like horror
I
type
like
ones.
it.
But Absolute Carnage is a pretty good
That's
one.
an interesting concept.
So pretty good.
Everyone who's ever worn and every symbiote that has ever
Hmm.
been going back to when Peter Parker found the black suit.
Yep. And basically you get Venom and Spider-Man kind of teaming up together to you know, rescue people and rescue different characters and stuff like that to try to keep them from, you know, getting the basically, oh, they're supposed to be taking him back to this lab. I believe it's Reed, a version of Reed Richards that is supposed to be pulling out the codexes out of them. And then, yeah, things go haywire. It's great comic.
Hmm,
Highly recommend it to anybody that wants to read it. So,
I like
on that
it.
note, I'm actually going to hit the right button this time.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.